Jonathan Turley was on our air last night, and he, keep in mind, said it's a 7-count indictment. We don't know exactly what the charges are, but Jonathan Turley posed a question: will they charge him with possession of classified documents? Because if they do, that it would be hard not to judge and charge Joe Biden. But if they don't charge him on that case, the case will be about obstruction, which you face 75 years in prison. And it involves conspiracy, which obviously a conspiracy is between at least two people. And they've had months. And we've been reading things that perhaps a number of the people close to him have flipped and have told the story about what actually happened.
So what's the difference in those charges? The one's violation of the Espionage Act. That's
we don't know exactly what any of the charges are. Okay. So it's just speculation.
So what would be obstruction of justice for having them and being...
Cover up.
Okay.
Keep in mind...
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he has the lowest in history. It's not high, and his first term isn't completely over. I know George Bush's approval rating at the end of his second term, especially, was horrible. So that's different because he was in office for 8 years. Maybe but I feel like I may have seen that he had a really low rating at some point, but I don't know if it's the lowest in history. I'm not sure about that. But either way, he's really not all that popular, let alone, just kind of the extremely milquetoast, lukewarm policy agenda that he has. He also really isn't somebody he's not front facing enough to be like widely loved by the people. It's not impossible, but it's kind of difficult to be very popular if you're not in people's face all the time, especially in modern times. It's just really difficult. And Biden, all the gaffes and all the missteps that he makes, so yeah. But either way, he ain't popular.
With Watergate, there was an original crime, but then it wasn't the crime, it was the cover-up, and that is what ended the presidency.
So if they charge Biden, which they won't, but let's say they did, we've got charges for Biden, charges for Trump. They're both going to be on the campaign trail and in the courtroom.
Yesterday we had Chris Christie on, and he said this was completely self-inflicted because the government asked him to voluntarily turn the documents over to the National Archives for over a year and a quarter, and he didn't turn them all over. So they wound up with a search warrant. They found more, and ultimately, if you knowingly kept things, that is bad for him. Apparently, during the investigation, the federal government discovered that boxes with papers were moved out of the mail storage room after the subpoena and then moved back into the storage room the day before the feds actually went in. And so it looks like they were trying to keep the secrets from the government.
Well, that's according to all the leaks of Jack Smith's investigation.
We don't know where the leaks came from, Brian, but it's a significant charge.
Why do we believe it?
Right before Brian Kilmeade said, "Why do we believe it?" I was just about to say, when it's this bad, it comes down to either, well, so what? Trump has the right to do that, or, well, they're just lying about it. And then Brian's like, well, why do we believe it? Like, there's no argument against that. He has no effective argument over the fact that, we have evidence and proof that makes it look undeniably like y'all were just trying to keep documents. Even after it was asked that you gave them back, it looks like you were doing everything that you could to keep them. And Brian's like, well, how do we know they're not lying about it? You know what I'm saying? Like, again, what are you going to do with that? You can't do anything with that.
I believe it.
We don't know where they came from.
He said, well, why do we believe it? Oh, God, that's so... Again, what are you going to do with that, man? All right, so I think we got one more in regards to this. Everything else is has to do with other things other than the Trump indictment. But again, every which way you look, it's like, oh, we're going to defend them. How do we know they're not lying about it? They're just fibbing. Trump's innocent. He's just a total victim, as they take absolutely no responsibility. Literally all these people need to do is find another They just need to find somebody else to go with. It's not more complicated than that. Just find another savior. But no, they can't. Oh. All right, let's see. Josh Hawley accuses Biden of personally attempting to jail Trump. So let's see.
Good question.
After the advertisement.
The right time to take charge of your dreams is right now. That business idea.
Laura, here's what I will say. If the president in power can just jail his political opponents, which is what Joe Biden is trying to do tonight, we don't have a republic anymore. We don't have the rule of law. We don't have the Constitution.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't it when Donald Trump was debating Hillary Clinton where he was like, if I was president, you'd be in jail right now. You'd be in jail right now if I was president. Well, what does that imply? It implies that I'll just throw you in jail, like, you know, just because I don't really like you and my base doesn't like you. And a lot of other people don't like you, but, you know. It's like these people forget we live in modern times and we can just Google stuff.
Good question, Laura. Here's what I will say. If the president in power can just jail his political opponents, which is what Joe Biden is trying to do tonight, we don't have a republic anymore. We don't have the rule of law. We don't have the Constitution. Our Constitution is built on the basic rule of law and due process, and nobody should be in doubt of what's happening tonight. Joe Biden and his cronies are trying to take out their chief political opponent. This has never happened before in American history, Laura. We are in dangerous waters, and it is because of Joe Biden.
Because the kids.
Now, Senator, lots of commentators on some of the other networks were making the point that, oh, well, Merrick Garland and Joe Biden have never talked about this. There's no pressure being brought to bear from the White House and DOJ, totally independent. But let me tell you, remember from April of last year, the New York Times reported that Biden, quote, said privately that he wanted Mr. Garland to act less like a ponderous judge and more like a prosecutor who's willing to take decisive action over the events of January 6th. Now, that was about the January 6th issue, but they always claim that Biden's hands are clean. But clearly, Merrick Garland, if he's able to read, and he's very smart, so he does read, they know what Biden wants done here. They know what has to be done before this election takes place.
So again, that sums up that sums up what we're gonna be looking at in terms of the indictment news. Because again, like ultimately, when it comes to the Republican primary, especially, unless Donald Trump is jailed soon or legally barred somehow from running for office, then ain't nothing really gonna change when it comes to the Republican base voting for him, especially in the primaries. He's still killing everybody, and now that we're killing everybody in the polls. But as we just looked at too, even Ron DeSantis, his biggest rival, who's still down by dozens of points, his biggest rival is like, oh no, we gotta clean up the Department of Justice because they're just willy-nilly going after this guy Donald Trump. You know, his record's totally clean. You know, the idea that they're just painting his entire life, you know, shades darker to make him look and appear like he's actually not a good guy is so implausible. But, you know, they don't care.